This is how it sounds for people with hearing loss. Sometimes we take our hearing for granted. Over 3 million people Canada-wide are diagnosed with a hearing disability. 1 in 6 are actually treated with a hearing aid, and it can take up to 7 years for somebody to get diagnosed and treated with a hearing loss. These stats are unacceptable.
For my hearing loss, I first noticed it in grade 7 when I was about 13 after I had been diagnosed with Meniere's disease. And so at the time I had a lot of vertigo symptoms. For me it was an inner ear issue, and I went to ENT after ENT after ENT, and it took a long time for somebody to figure out what was the cause of my symptoms and my hearing loss. And my hearing loss has been gradual since then, but I also have had constant tinnitus since I was 13, and I'm 23 now. So it's been a nice decade of tinnitus.
My parents found out when I was born, so I've had it my whole life. When I was born, my parents noticed that my left ear was, didn't look normal. So they spoke to the doctors and they found out that I had microtia, which is essentially a malformation of the ear, I would say. And they looked into it, and shortly after they realized that I had a hearing loss. Yeah, so I wore a headband that I could wear over my head as a baby, and I had hearing aids attached. I think I had one hearing aid attached to it. Yeah. My mom expressed to me always growing up how scared she was. You know, she didn't know anything about hearing loss and what it entails, and you know, the question was, you know, thrown in the air if I'm deaf or if it's just a moderate to severe hearing loss. So I think not knowing, you know, the level or degree of hearing loss that I had was definitely something that that worried my parents.
Hearing loss affects all aspects of one's life, from safety and security. Imagine not being able to hear a fire alarm in your building go off, or not being able to hear where an emergency vehicle is coming from, or being able to communicate with a 911 operator. These are some of the challenges that people with hearing loss face in a day-to-day life.
The biggest issue, I think I was in my 2nd or 3rd year, I had some profs where they had heavier accents and their slides didn't have all their talking points, and I kept missing every 3rd word. And that was when I realized that either my hearing loss had gotten worse, or I just needed additional help. I needed to go get a new set of hearing aids because I wasn't using my old ones as much.
So BAHA stands for bone anchored hearing aid. I got the surgery for it when I was 15, and yeah, it completely changed my hearing life. You know, when we have a hearing loss, we don't know any difference. So growing up till I was 15 with my hearing aids, I just assumed that I heard pretty well. But as soon as I got my BAHAs and I put them on for the first time, it was like, you know, I heard footsteps, I heard the birds outside, like I heard just the small things that we take for granted, I guess, and I never realized that I was missing out on all these things. So yeah, I mean, it immediately brought my hearing to like 50% to 100. So I was kind of shocked or scared in the beginning because I didn't know what all these other sounds were, you know, and like people always say, like, you know, you wake up in the morning and you hear the birds chirping outside, but I just never heard that, you know. So I mean, it definitely took some adjusting time and time to get used to hearing all these normal sounds, but I mean, it's the most amazing thing. I mean, I think this organization is great. You know, it can bring young people together, not just young people, but, you know, it can really bring people with hearing loss together. And, you know, when I was working here, I was going out to day camps and, you know, and teaching kids about hearing loss and what noise-induced hearing loss is. And I think it's really great to spread the message of hearing loss to people who may not, you know, have it right now, but, you know, maybe one day they will, or their grandparents or their parents. So it just kind of opens the door for conversations. Yeah.
So you've just heard from two of our younger demographics talk about how their hearing loss has affected different aspects of their life. We're going to listen and hear from a couple of other older adults and how it affects their life.
My parents discovered it in a more significant way when I started to go to kindergarten. And actually, the teacher was the one that noticed it, and they did all kinds of mental assessment and all kinds of things. And then they discovered that the problem is actually hearing loss. They felt very guilty. They took me to the doctor, and he was like, "Oh, her ears are full of fluids." And by the way, at that time, there were no tubes and things to, we used to go to the ENT, and with the needle, he used to prick the ear and take out the needle. That I remember because it was very painful. When I got the first hearing aid, one in the ear, because I didn't want it to be visible and the whole thing. And I went to the street, and I was shocked because a bus passed by, and I thought that it's a bomb or something. Hearing aids do help, they save your life basically, but they don't solve all the problems. So it's how you present it. I have a problem and I ask your help. I find it very powerful because not only I share with them something that is so personal, I actually teach them that we're not the same, but we are actually.
So attending a social activity, going on a date, finding a job, or even attending a class are all challenges that our members learn to overcome every day here at Hear Entendre Québec.
The first time I found out was about early 1980s or late 70s. And it was just in one ear. It wasn't too serious, but it has been developing ever since. First thing I did was just check with a doctor, and he sent me off to an audiologist who gave a test and put a hearing aid up for me, so I was okay. And I did well with the one hearing aid for a number of years. Well, the everyday challenges, for example, stores where there are a lot of people. I'm going through a grocery list, banks, restaurants, of course, are always a big problem, and everybody knows that. Also, people on the phone, they speak so quickly that I simply cannot understand them. The things that I do day to day, I tell people, I do a lot of this. I point quickly sometimes when I don't want to have to spend a lot of time explaining I do not hear you or did not understand you. But the main thing is to let people know that I'm conversing with, that I am very hard of hearing, and they have to slow down. Rarely, they do slow for a few seconds, and then they're back up to speed again. CHIP here, I've attended for a number of years, and I find that very helpful because there are other people in my class that I associate with, and they have problems, and we share. And also they encourage me to take audiology tests and sort of keep track of what my hearing loss is.
We need to start having a conversation about hearing loss, understanding that noise-induced hearing loss is becoming a huge issue within our society with all of the technological advancements. Preventing hearing loss in future generations is a top priority for everyone.